As a growth marketer, I welcome it because in the past, every time I do an A/B test, it costs me time, resources, and money. Now it's like dynamically Google's doing it for me. I'm like, this is great.
From Hotel Tech Report, it's Hotel Tech Insider, a show about the future of hotels and the technology that powers them. Today on the show, we have Bridget Tran, the CMO of Method. Method is a vertically integrated real estate management, development, and design company that's rooted in hospitality. Bridget has held key roles at major hotel groups like IHG, Taj Hotels, Dream Hotel Group, Nobu, and Club Quarters Hotels. We talk about the need for consolidated data across departments, orchestration, and making sure that hotel departments are not only talking to each other, but their data is connected in ways that can be actionable and used at the property level. Bridget, thanks so much for coming on the show today. We're excited to have you. I'd love to get started by just learning about your background and how you got to be in the position you're at today.
Well, I've been in hospitality and hotels for about 20 years. And so I started off with a startup, created 2 startups, sold those 2, and thought, if I were to go to work for the big boys, I can learn all about their secrets and come out and do more startups. Well, 15 years later, I'm still in the corporate world. But what I have learned from the big corporate world is that I think probably mid-scale company is better for me because I can be a little more nimble. I like the startup world. I like the corporate, standards and procedures. But I think what fits is really the middle, where I don't have to worry about paying my bills in the startup world, but I can still be an entrepreneur and have a solid foundation and background. And that's where it landed me at Method.
And what kind of roles?
I worked at Intercontinental, so I was head of their paid media back then. So performance marketing is what we call paid media e-commerce. So I was head of that performance marketing for Intercontinental up in Canada, 376 hotels, 9 brands at the time. And then from there, I went to Mandarin Oriental, head of their digital, 26 hotels across the globe. I worked with Taj. They were based in India. I was based in New York, along with our New York team. As you know, they have palaces, they have resorts, hotels, city hotels. And then I've also worked for Hyatt Dream Hotels, based in New York as well, also head of their digital e-commerce distribution, and then went to Nobu. So also part of their hotel team, growing their hotel portfolio, but also helping them with the restaurant as well. Because, Nobu starts off as a restaurant. And then when I came on board, the starting team is the hotel team that's been building the hotel branch of it. And then at Club Quarters, I wanted some extended stay service apartment experience because I've never had that. As you can tell, it was mostly luxury. And I've also never had true mass marketing experience. I'm like, what is it like? So I worked for Club Quarters as their CMO. And to my surprise, after starting, they're like, well, one of the reasons why we hire you is because so we can elevate the Club Quarters to a luxury brand. I'm like, darn it. But that was great. It was a good experience learning about the service apartments, the apartment hotels. And then I wanted to learn more about asset management and ownership. And so I came here. They started off as apartment hotels, but they own and operate a lot of their own. And they have a big real estate arm. So I started here. And then we've been growing and building more luxury hotels, bars, and restaurants. It kind of comes in full circle, I think.
Can you tell me more about the properties, the type of assets, amenities of those properties, just to get a little background on the business?
Yeah. So the company started about 10 years ago, started as apartment hotels. And back in the Frank Sinatra days, it's actually apartment hotels. That's pretty cool. It's a full apartment, but you get the hotel amenities. So it's kind of like Airbnb meets hotel. It's pretty great. So the company starts as such. And then since then, they've built restaurants. They started out in Philly, so that's where it's based. And we have grown. And their 2 focus mission is to focus on secondary market. And they are placemakers. So they want to go into markets where there's very little choice for culinary experience. There's little choice for hospitality stay. And so we're going into Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore, parts of the neighborhoods in Philadelphia, Tampa, now in Atlanta, but not in Buckhead, almost like the Brooklyn of New York, but in Atlanta, 4th Ward, and building these luxury hotels, apartments, as well as food and beverage experiences.
Cool. So kind of find that up and coming area and then be the catalyst for that area to, evolve around the property.
Right. And all our projects, not the earlier ones, but more so as we're going forward, it's always been on multi-purpose. So having the property, it's almost like creating a destination and a reason why someone would go to these secondary cities, making parts of the neighborhood cool where you wouldn't think of when you come to New York or Cleveland or Detroit, leaving the downtown for this pocket.
And are the restaurants always co-located with the extended stay properties?
Yeah. So perfect example would be the one in Atlanta that we are building for June launch. It has 2 hotels in the building. So it has a regular luxury hotel product that you and I know of, like you go in, there's a room or it might be a suite. And then there's also another product, which is the extended stay service apartments. So I don't like to use the word extended stay because most people think that you have to stay for a long period of time to stay in it, but that's not true. It's just an apartment product. But of course, most people do extended stay because it's an apartment. So within that building, there's 2 types of products, accommodation product. There's also 4 restaurants and bars. There's a rooftop pool with the bars. And then also there's a club piece as well. So the club piece, it's both wellness and social club. I like to think that the best way to describe it is, as I was mentioning, is like Equinox meet Casa Cipriani. So it has its own restaurant, it has its own lounge, its own terrace. So it's very private and it's by invite only.
Can you talk me through at a high level what the technology stack looks like at Roost and how you guys think about composing that to serve all these different business needs?
Yeah, because, behaviors is very different when you live there for 6 months or 6 weeks versus someone who's there for 6 days or 2 days. There's a lot more service needs. And so trying to be in the hospitality space and keeping track of that, there's a lot of data points. And then we're collecting a lot more than a traditional hotel company would be because I'm not just coming back, but they're staying for a really long time. There are people who are staying for months, months, and then they come back. So not just collecting the data, but actually mapping it and actually telling the story. I like to call it mapping the digital DNA of an individual. So that's my mission is to be able to map every person's digital DNA and anticipate their needs before they even ask. I think I learned that from the luxury world. Like that is what true luxury is having that kind of service where people just know what I want, and without me asking.
So the brain usually starts in the PMS, the nucleus. What do you guys use from a PMS perspective at Roost?
We currently have Opera. So we're testing at Fourth how Opera can behave and how Opera can help with the portfolio and how Opera can integrate with all the other technology.
What's the bifurcation between the Roost and the Fourth brands? Is it different room counts, different amenity levels? How does that work?
Yeah, so Roost it only has one product, one accommodation product, and it's the apartments service hotel. There's no daily room service. It's weekly. You can buy into it, but it's a weekly service. And the earlier Roost products don't necessarily have F&B, although we are building F&B. We're going back to some of our previous development and adding in F&B like coffee shop, wine bar, restaurant, and so forth. But the earlier projects was purely service apartment hotels. Fourth is our latest project that's launching in June. That one has a whole gamut of everything. There is a Roost in there, which we're not calling Roost. It's a Roost product, but it's going to be part of the Fourth branding, just so that the public is not confused. So there's 2 types of accommodation product. One is the traditional rooms and suites that we are accustomed to. You walk in, there's a room, there's a suite, amenities. And then the other product is the service apartment hotel component, just like the Roost.
And how do you guys price the rooms for Roost? I know that extended stay versus short term, I know it's not all extended stay, is typically like you might need a different revenue management system. Do you know what you guys use on the Roost side of the business there?
That's a good question. I don't manage revenue. I know they used to use OTA Insight, which I think is called Lighthouse now, I believe, for that. And pricing for service apartment is very different. It's almost like corporate housing or group blocks. So the pricing for it is quite different from my traditional world that I used to come from.
On the marketing side of things, who builds your websites for these 2 brands?
Gourmet Marketing built our websites. Yeah. And we use HubSpot for that because HubSpot has been really good in being able to track everything from all the different paid media as well as organic touch points to mapping behavior to the endpoint of the booking.
And how did you guys hear about Gourmet Marketing? Is that a partner that you brought on recently, or has that been a legacy partner for the company?
I inherited Gourmet Marketing, and they're probably the best company I've ever worked with. Coming from digital, I've worked with many bigger brands and smaller brands and the same size brands. What I like about them is that they're hungry and they're passionate, like they're truly passionate, but they're not just marketers. They're technology folks and they love data and they're mad about data as much as I am. So lucky for me, I don't need to go through the drill of replacing. And I finally found somebody and a company that really understands my vision and apparently has been working towards that same vision even before I came on board.
Do you guys use any website optimization tools like conversion rate optimization on the site or like a Triptease or Hotel Champ or Hotel Effectiveness or any of those?
Yeah, we use Triptease.
And that's more for like A/B testing different promotional offers and things like that?
Yep, all of that as well as comparative pricing for the guests.
So the guest will land on a website developed by Gourmet Marketing. It's built on the HubSpot CMS. And then they'll get some Triptease messaging that hopefully encourages them to convert at a higher rate. And then they go through and they book onto Nexus. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. And then when they're in the booking engine, they can also see the price comparison as well so that they don't abandon the booking process.
You mentioned HubSpot for the CRM. I haven't heard too many hotel groups using HubSpot just because there's this kind of like data requirement of needing recency, frequency, and monetary value to create segments in the CRM system. Are you guys exporting data from Muse and Oracle into HubSpot around those data types and you've kind of like custom configured it around that use case?
Yes. So there are some data that automatically flows in from Muse into HubSpot, but not all. We do have to manually upload and download, and we are working with connectors that can do some of the automation. That probably has been a disconnect between the two systems. And we use HubSpot very strategically, and I've never seen it in any other hotel. And I've worked, as you heard, I've worked in some big hotels. But I can literally see every ad and every campaign that generated the performance. So it's not just about paid media or organic, but literally drill down to the specific campaign, the specific ad group, the specific ads and copy that is generated. And to add to that, it's also helped us greatly in terms of B2B marketing. So in many instances, you'll hear marketers say that it's hard to track B2B, but through HubSpot with Gourmet Marketing and how they're tracking everything, we can track every lead, every phone call, every text, every email, and what it converts towards the end. So we've actually used it for apartment rental, apartment lease, as well as these long-term stays to just corporate and group transient, leisure sales for the sales team. So HubSpot is actually, it's probably the best CRM for hospitality that I've worked with. And I've worked with some bigger brands too, in terms of CRM. And also, I think it's because it has an open API. So it's like willing to connect to a lot of, so I've been getting a lot more data than I used to in the past.
What are the most critical technology partners? It sounds like HubSpot is definitely one of those. It sounds like Opera is a strategic partner, Muse on the Roost side. Are there any other partners? Obviously, Synexis from a booking engine side and facilitation of like rates and availability and a booking experience. Are there any other vendors that come to mind or tools that you're using that are really strategic for the business that you could not live without?
We just signed up with Domo. And so working very closely with our revenue team. The vision for Domo is really to feed in not just marketing data or psychological data or behavioral data, but feed in, and I guess to backtrack, it's more like to break down the data silo between departments, year over year, with every company I've been to, no matter big or small, data lives in silo within those departments. And so we purposely got Domo so that we can feed in the finance information, the revenue, the marketing, the sales, so we can actually create a more holistic commercial data story. That's what's missing in a lot of company. And that is our big undertaking and mission, is to be able to tell that holistic data story.
Was there a specific event or how did the search for Domo arise? Did you guys have some pain point where like, we just spent all this money on ads, or we're crossing wires with the revenue management team, or we didn't know the rate codes that they were building? Was there some event or kind of catalyst to go out and search for that kind of a solution?
Well, when I first started here, and I think it was during one of my first meeting, I was meeting with our revenue management team, and it's always been my mission to do that. So the last couple of companies, I focus a lot on data integration, breaking down the data silos, working more cross departmental departments. And so in my discussion with them, and I was like, well, this is what I've been doing, for the last 5, 6 years. It would be great to do it here. I said, it's small here. It's smaller here. There's a lot more product across the board. So like I said, the data would be even more fascinating than the data I've been used to seeing. So I got really pumped and excited and then I told them some of my success stories and some of what I've done in the past, like with Nobu and with Dream. And I said, but I think we can do more here. It's just because we have so much under our portfolio that I never had before. And so I think this excitement translated. And he's like, I've been thinking about that too. So I think it just came from that lunch that we had. And then since then, the idea just blossomed and we're like, we got to do this. And of course, when budget season comes, we're like, this is the time we have to ask for the money. So this is the time we have to propose. And now we're both so excited. So luckily, our senior executives are visionary folks and they see the importance of data and they understand, I think to scale, to drive efficiency and effectiveness, and even just to be a better operator, that we do need to consolidate these data. So luckily it was approved and now we're starting the project.
Where are you guys in the process with Domo? Are you guys currently scoping and building out what those dashboards look like?
We are building. We're in the building phase. I think we're started off with the finance department and that first. So we're integrating with the finance technology and trying to feed that in. And I think we've been working on the marketing piece since I'm so involved in our marketing data. And then revenue is also coming in place. So those are the 3 areas. So finance first and then marketing.
And are there specific data points that you want to see in there as a marketer? Are there certain insights that you're excited that might be potentially available to you that weren't available before?
I think behavior, I like to see more behavioral data. I never really got a lot of behavioral data. I mean, I could see action points and stuff, but never seeing the relationship in terms of how it translates, especially now, like taking forth our product. How does a member or a non-member uses the pool, or why would they stay in one hotel, regular hotel product, and another time stay at an apartment hotel? The different restaurants and this and that. I think learning the behavior of every guest is important, not just their likes and dislikes, but, what makes them moves and drives and kind of decisions. I've never gotten at that level before.
Do you guys use any like guest messaging, guest communication apps or systems? Like it seems like in an extended stay experience, you have so many touch points with the guests that you kind of need something a little more efficient than like phone calls, especially if you're tracking data around what's being ordered and where are they going, et cetera.
Yeah, definitely. So we do have Twilio. We do have an app that is built into PeopleVine. We do have Revenate, their service, but we are looking into like something maybe a little more robust than what we currently have.
With Revenate, so you use their messaging product, but not their CRM product. Is that connected to HubSpot, basically, their messaging product?
Unfortunately, no, they're not connected. I want to, but can't find that connectivity as of yet. But then again, I've only been here for 8 months, so we're working on it.
You mentioned PeopleVine also. I know a lot of people in our audience are not going to be familiar with PeopleVine because it's more of the membership management side. What does PeopleVine do for those who haven't heard of it?
So PeopleVine is for membership. They call it a CRM. So it is a data warehouse of guest data, but it's very geared towards members and membership. And they are very different in the sense that these people may not be staying at your hotel, but they could be coming every day. And so when people come every day, they have different behavior, different needs, different demands as well. And the psychology and behaviors behind that also is very different. And so therefore they specialize in that. So they do have messaging. They have a messaging technology component. They have the data warehouse component. And then they also have like a booking capability as well. So with an app, as a member, you can book your spa, you can book your locker, you can book your pool table, your cabana, your treadmill, you can book your yoga classes. So it's meant to be for regulars, like literally regulars who's going to use the service of that building every day.
And based on your experience with PeopleBuying, do you think this would be an interesting solution for hotels that don't have a club? And that, let's say I run a 150 room mid-scale property that has great meeting space and shared working space, or something that could be shared working space. Could I then make that space bookable and say, hey, I'm going to give 2 hours in this meeting room and it's going to cost $200, and then use PeopleBuying to market to even guests in that case?
Yeah, I guess you can. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's not purely based on repeat guests. So it's not that they can only provide data if you're constantly coming in so that they can have those data points. So I guess you can do that if you think about it.
Going back into the marketing side of things, I mean, obviously there's so much changing in marketing. What are some of the biggest changes you're seeing in terms of like performance marketing from going all the way back to your days at IHG to now? Like, how is performance marketing in hotels different today than it was then?
Well, definitely machine learning, AI have changed quite a bit. I mean, just with the Performance Max, introducing that, and that's all about machine learning and AI versus in the past, it's very static. It's not about emulating the public's needs or their tone or their vocabulary. Nowadays, it's less about what we think of us in terms of words and tones. It's more about getting the feedback from the public. And that's where the AI and machine learning comes in and being so powerful. And I think a true marketer and a successful company needs to understand that sometimes, especially nowadays, you might have to compromise and toggle between branding, holding it very strongly and sternly, and letting that go a little bit so you can produce. More as a growth marketer, I tend to let it loose and let it go because you do bring in more revenue, you do bring in more traffic because you are delivering what the public is telling you they need, not what you want to sell. And so you'll see that more and more companies that are willing to let go of their stronghold and brand guidelines will do better than those who are stuck in their ways, especially in the luxury world. I come from the luxury world, so there's not a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can and cannot do when it comes to branding. And that includes copy. It includes keywords, like the simplest things. You
mentioned Google Performance Max. So from my understanding, Google Performance Max is kind of optimizing ads across platforms. So you're like, okay, if YouTube's performing better than search, then I want to like decrease my YouTube bids. How does that work for you guys, and how has that changed your business?
In addition to that too, it's also about like this image works better with this copy, and changing some of the wording and stuff like that also has changed how we do marketing and how we view ourselves. So I think there's a lot of learnings from that. One is we learn that how we project is not how it's being received. Like, how we talk about ourselves or how we think our brand is not always the same, good or bad, right? The words we use many times are not understood because it's not understood because people don't search for it, or it's more of a negative or a positive connotation that we were not intended for. So there's a lot of learning in this in a way. I think it's also allowed us to be more flexible, more versatile, more nimble. It's also helped our creative team, believe it or not, like in all of this, it's actually also helped our creative team because creative is very traditional in terms of marketing because it's part of that whole branding. Like there has to be a certain look, certain feel, certain color because this is associated, to our brand and there's certain meaning, but it doesn't always translate, even though that is what we mean. But with the Google being able to test all that on its own using AI and machine learning has been a great learning for us. As a growth marketer, I welcome it because in the past, every time I do an A/B test, it costs me time, resources, and money. Now it's like dynamically Google's doing it for me. I'm like, this is great. This is really great for me. I don't have to spend extra money just to do these kind of tests for myself. So it's been working out well, and our performance is great as well. So it just further proves that it works and that we are actually adapting and learning. We're not resisting to it.
And from a Google perspective, is Gourmet Marketing running those campaigns for you? Do you do all that in-house?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So they're your partner for performance as well.
Correct.
Are you guys doing any paid on TripAdvisor or other meta search channels outside of Google, or is that your main focus?
Meta search, yes. We are doing meta search, Google, Kayak, TripAdvisor, Trivago.
And are you seeing any trends in those channels? Like I know Trivago and TripAdvisor specifically have both struggled financially and their stocks have taken some big hits in recent years. Are you seeing new shifts in any of these channels? Is Google still the most dominant?
Google's still the most dominant. Depending on their budget, the yearly budget, sometimes we have to shut off some of the channels just to maximize others that are working. And then other times we do turn on all of them. And it also depends on the seasonality and property and so forth. Just in general, Google and TripAdvisor works the best for us. TripAdvisor in the sense that we don't get the most booking, but we get the highest ADR and the longest length of stay. So even though you only get one booking or two booking, but the revenue and the length of stay actually can come up to be pretty high. So that's our finding. It is roughly about 6-1, both Google and for TripAdvisor. Google, we do get the most booking, but they don't necessarily produce the biggest revenue or the longest stay. There's a lot more shorter term. And then the other two platform is typically 4-1. I'll be happy if it's 5-1.
And do you have a hypothesis as to why that might be on TripAdvisor? Is it like someone staying longer, like cares more, and so they do more research, and TripAdvisor is the place they do that?
No, I think it's because, I mean, probably, I wouldn't say no. I think it's the reviews, to be honest. I think a lot of it's emotional selling. I think it's, reading the review, being influenced by the review helps people make a decision right there. And it's good to have that kind of platform right there when you catch them. So for that reason too, we do pay attention to a lot of the reviews on OTAs because OTAs is a pure distribution channel. They are going there purely to book. So you don't want a bad review to stop them at their tracks. You want them to continue the process. It's kind of like a TripAdvisor. They are excited about all these reviews, so let's make sure they book. And so it's the same philosophy.
And in terms of like social media, do you guys do paid acquisition on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? I mean, it sounds like YouTube through Google, TikTok. What channels are you guys using and what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I wanted to do TikTok this year. There isn't enough resources and I don't want to dilute the resources we have. And I want to make sure that the channels that work, we want to put all our manpower and money towards. So definitely next year we'll have a more robust TikTok. But TikTok is, I mean, I really want to work with TikTok. It's not only a social media platform, but it's becoming a very powerful e-commerce platform. I mean, again, just as the same reason why people would buy and get addicted to Meta, Instagram and Facebook, it's all about emotional selling. It's all about influential selling. So people are inspired. And at that time, just like at TripAdvisor, when they're inspired, let's make it easy for them to buy something. So TikTok is one of those. And it's also one that would capture a younger audience, even though increasingly there's older audience that are taking on to TikTok. But I think when you're in business and you're thinking about scaling, you have to remember that to work on the next generation of buyers. Focus on your current, but don't forget the future. And so they might not be buying it right now because they don't have a card or money, but they see enough of it now. By the time they have a card and they can travel, we're there.
And do you guys use influencer marketing platform to source those individuals? How does that process work from like start to finish?
We actually work with our PR team. I used to work with a network. Like there's a platform that I would go in, like almost like a database of influencers. And then I would pick it's almost like going on a dating site. You pick the influencer that meets and it also gives you great reporting in terms of like what they've done and itemize all the activities. Currently, we're working with our PR agencies for that because they have a network of agents. And I think in a way, it's also good because their influencers are very PR media tied. So I'm getting 2 for 1 in a way. So we're getting the influencer benefits that I would normally do, but they also have that media backing as well, which has been working very well for our F&A.
I usually like to end the conversation with asking a weird one, but is there anything that you believe is true about hotel technology that you think most of the industry would disagree with? Are there things that you look around the room in the context of technology, innovation, digital in the hotel world, where everyone is kind of going one way and you're like, I kind of don't agree with that or think that everyone's handling this the wrong way?
Well, one thing that I know that I'm against current is that I've been working very closely with gourmet marketing to create correlation between marketing and revenue management. And so in all the companies that I've worked for and all the colleagues that I've collaborated with and know, I don't see anyone that's truly collaborating with revenue in terms of like the cost and effect. whether it's cost and effect from the revenue side or the cost and effect from the digital, and really sharing the purchase behavior, the buyer's trend, and how ADR affects someone's behavior and booking pattern and how that affects future bookings. So we've been doing a lot of that for the last few months and trying to map out, is our ad too early and it's hurting our ADR, And we've actually helped our revenue team narrow down what's a good ADR. We've seen them when the ADR dips, the booking spikes. And as soon as they raise the ADR, it's like, oh, now all the bookings stopped. And it's like, well, maybe in the medium. So we've been really doing a lot of that. That's one thing that I haven't seen any of my colleagues do, is really, truly breaking down that silo and working with revenue. Because I think digital marketing, e-commerce is a part of distribution. It's just the front part of the equation. And then we have the other part of the equation that we typically just pass over to revenue or vice versa.
Bridget, well, we covered a lot of ground from paid media to technology and everything in between. Really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jordan. It's nice to meet you and to talk to you. Thanks for this opportunity.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Hotel Tech Insider, produced by HotelTechReport.com. Our goal with this podcast is to show you how the best in the business are leveraging technology to grow their properties and outperform the comp set by using innovative digital tools and strategies. I encourage all of our listeners to go try at least one of these strategies or tools that you learned from today's episode. Successful digital transformation is all about consistent small experiments over a long period of time. So don't wait until tomorrow to try something new. Do you know a hotelier who would be great to feature on this show? Or do you think that your story would bring a lot of value to our audience? Reach out to me directly on LinkedIn by searching for Jordan Hollander. For more episodes like this, follow Hotel Tech Insider on all major streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music.